Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they're apparating around the country, going different places. Okay? How are they eating? I don't mean literally how. What are they eating? Mushrooms, plants, stuff that Hermione conjures into some kind of food that isn't really food, according to whom? Ron. And we're going to get a passage where, Ron kind of blows up and says, well, can't you just make food out of nothing? And Hermione says, no, it's some certain law. And then she says, you can't make food out of nothing. Well, my mother can. No, she can't. Okay? But then they steal some eggs and some bread, I think it is. They actually leave money for it. Okay? And Hermione does what with that? She makes a wonderful breakfast. And we get the scene where Ron is stuffed and he's suddenly kind of aglow. And the narrator says something to the effect of, and they now kind of came to realize that having a full stomach does what? It lifts the spirits. And having an empty stomach does what? Lowers the spirits. Notice, spirits, soul, so to speak, is affected by the body, and vice versa. The two are connected. The two here are connected. All right? Now, go on to the second chapter. Spinner's End. What's that title mean? It's a location. It's a name, right? Spinner's End. Okay. What is the location? Okay, Snape lives there. He lives on the road called Spinner's End. Little conjecture here. What Dumbledore would call, leaving the sheer, the clear light of fact to kind of, the murky conjecture of speculation. Has Snape always lived here? We're not told he hasn't. So, if Snape has always lived here, who also lived at least near here? We come to learning. Okay? Lily did. Okay? Describe the street that Snape lives on. Old and run down. Okay? It's not a beautiful street. It's not like if you've been down, Holland Park, or if you've been over by Kensington Palace. It's, leafy, suburban, beautiful houses, etc. It's run down. We have described along one side of the road what? An empty factory. Okay, so this is an industrial part of the country, wherever that is. More than likely, because it's industrial, I think it's probably the Midlands, and it's probably somewhere close to maybe Leeds or Manchester, because those are two of the big industrial cities in England. Okay? So what happens in this chapter? The unbreakable vow. Name the characters involved. Narcissa, Severus. Who else is there, but he's not really involved? Wormy. Okay. What does the unbreakable vow involve? What is Narcissa getting Snape to do? Okay, make a promise. To protect Draco or finish whatever it is Draco has to do if Draco can't do it. What will be the consequences if Snape doesn't do either of these two things? He dies. Okay? Go back to the title of the chapter for a moment. What's a spinner? And what does the word end mean? Is it end like, put this on so I can move my computer. Is it end like this is the top, or this is the beginning and this is the end? Is it end like the end of the last train, the last coach on a train, and the first one is the engine? Is it that kind of end? Is it end like next Monday is the end of your 4 weeks in London? That is one meaning of the word end, right? The conclusion of something. Okay? So, conclusion. What other kind of meaning does the word end have? Okay, death, finality. Not what I was looking for. You guys are morbid. So I was going to write down morbid because that's death. You've heard of the phrase ends in means? What does ends there mean? Goal, outcome, purpose. Okay? It's related to the Greek telos, from which we get teleology, which is talking about the purpose of things. Okay? Spinners. What spins? Tops spin, right? What's the purpose of the top spinning? To spin. There's no other purpose. Spiders. Spiders spin. What do they spin? Are we getting closer to the meaning of the title? What is Narcissa doing? Isn't Snape getting trapped in a web? Think about what happens if he tries to get out of it. He's dead. What happens if a fly tries to get out of a web? What happens to the web? It's the movement of the web that attracts the spider from its lair. See, when a fly or a bug or a moth hits a web, it's not the initial hitting of the web that attracts the spider. It's the bug's movement that sends ripples across every thread of the web that draws the spider out. That's when the spider comes and attacks. Okay? Spinner's purpose. Are there other spinners besides spiders? Your mind was blown before rain? Bingo. Who said that? Catherine? The Fates.
You're just like right.
I'd love to have you in class, and have you be high. Could you just... This is just like okay? Or the Old Norse Norns. Okay? Who are the Fates? You have Clotho, the spinner. See, the three Fates are related to weaving. Okay? You have Clotho the spinner. I had to actually write these down because I forget it every time I teach this course. You have Lachesis, who is the measurer, and then Atropo, the cutter. What do the three Fates do? Clotho measures out the amount of thread you have in your life. Clotho spins the thread. Lachesis measures out how much you have, and Atropo is the one who cuts you off. Okay? So how does this relate? Notice, this is almost at the beginning of the novel. It's not quite, but it's almost. And so what do we have happen from here throughout the rest of the novel. We see the threads being spun. Right? Do we see the cutting in this novel? Not for Snape, we don't. We do for Dumbledore. Because what else is going on? We hear later. When Snape goes and he agrees to make the unbreakable vow, who also knows? Dumbledore. I mean, yeah, Bellatrix, she's there. Does she believe anything that Snape says in this chapter?
No.
What does she think his relationship with Voldemort is? Louder. A false one. In other words, she thinks Snape can do what to Voldemort? Okay, quote Voldemort. I always know when someone's lying. You can't pull a fast one on me because I'm Lord Voldemort. And Snape even kind of suggests, are you suggesting that I can drink the Dark Lord? Oh, no. Snape's like, let me just jot that down and remember to tell him the next time I see him. When we have one of our little private meetings, you know. Right? What do we discover about Bellatrix in this chapter? Not as close as she used to be. Keep going with that a little bit, Vicky. And not as close as she wants to be. What else? She's pretty twisted, isn't she? I mean, who's more twisted, Bellatrix or Lucius? Who's more of a true believer?
Bellatrix.
Okay. What about Narcissa?
She's talking about she just wants Draco to live.
She loves her son. She just wants Draco to live. She's kind of saying what to the Dark Lord? Okay. Kind of like that's the Dark Lord. If he's going to kill my son, what's most important to her? Her son. Her family. Okay. This chapter shows us she's not a true believer at all. Okay. Because if you are going to be a true believer, what place does love have in Death Eater's minds? Do they love Lord Voldemort? No. They fear Lord Voldemort.
Except for Bellatrix.
And it's we can even talk there about whether or not that's love, okay? In this chapter, Snape mentions that he's been gathering information for the Dark Lord for 16 years. Is that right? How long had the Dark Lord been missing, so to speak? How old is Harry in this book? He turned 16.
So it would have been more like 14 or 15.
Yeah. Little time chronology issue problem that an editor should have caught. Okay? What else does Snape say? Snape talks about Dumbledore to them. And he says Dumbledore's been injured. When does he say Dumbledore was injured? During his duel with the Dark Lord at the end of Book 5. Was Dumbledore injured in that?
No.
Did anything happen? Hey, I'm not thinking film because I've not seen it. But in the books, Dumbledore's just sitting there kind of just waving. Oh, Tom. Tom. You shouldn't have come here tonight. No, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to do something much worse. I'm going to bring a bunch of Dementors and I'm going to suck your soul out of you and leave you a desiccated shell. Then you'll be sorry. But he keeps calling him Tom. He's not worried. He's like, Harry, shut up, be quiet. I'll take care of this big old statue to protect him. Okay? So, he says that the duel with the Dark Lord last month shook him. He has since sustained a serious injury because his reactions are slower than they once were. Was Dumbledore shaken by Voldemort? No, he wasn't. Has he since sustained a serious injury? Yes, he has. Caused by trying to destroy the horcrux in the ring. Okay. Are his reaction times slower? No. So, part of what Snape says is true. Part of what Snape says is untrue. So how do we know what's true from Snape? Okay. Next chapter. And we're not going to go through all the chapters, I don't think, unless I can talk a lot faster. Dumbledore comes to pick up Harry. Okay? Oh, that's right. We're going to talk about it now. Dumbledore comes to pick up Harry. Does Harry tell the Dursleys that Dumbledore's coming? Apparently not. Okay? Because Dumbledore says, as he's standing on the doorstep, before we talk about what he says, think about the world. Think about the wizarding world for a moment. At this point in time, and the Muggle world, okay, what has been going on in the UK? What has happened? Chaos. Okay? We've had the Brockdale Bridge disaster. We've had the hurricane in the West Country, and we've had the Emmeline Vance and the Susan Bones murders. Okay? What's so odd about the Emmeline Vance and Susan Bones murders? People get murdered every day. Yes, even in England they get murdered every day. Yeah, a locked door, no wounds. No marks of death on the body. They just kind of have that look on their faces. And they don't know how they got in. Right? It's kind of a mystery. What else? People are disappearing. In the wizarding world, people are disappearing. Okay? Voldemort has kind of shown his hand. And everybody in the wizarding world now knows Voldemort's back. He's risen to power. Okay? So, the Ministry of Magic has started putting out what? What kinds of pamphlets? How to protect your family. You guys are probably too young to remember 9/11. But the government actually, before we came out with that monstrous, hideous thing called the Department of Homeland Security, which is completely useless, the government literally told people, because if there's now increased possibility of gas attacks or radiological dirty bomb attacks, everybody should have, some rolls of plastic sheeting in their home and duct tape. To duct tape your windows. This is like when I grew up and being told, if there's a nuclear blast, get under a table. That'll really help. I used to think, if there's a nuclear blast, I'm heading towards it because I want to die quickly rather than a long, slow, painful death. Yeah. William Shatner, must go to the light. Okay? So, Dumbledore arrives on the door and says, judging by your look of stunned disbelief, Harry did not warn you that I was coming. However, let us assume that you have invited me into your house. It is unwise to linger over long on doorsteps in these troubled times. We're talking about suburban London. And Dumbledore is saying, even here in suburban London, it's dangerous to be standing on a doorstep. So, Vernon replies, I don't mean to be rude. In a tone that threatened rudeness in every syllable. And Dumbledore cuts him off. Yet sadly, accidental rudeness occurs alarmingly often. Okay. This is quintessential J.K. Rowling. What does she mean? I don't mean to be rude. I don't intend to be rude. He says, but every syllable he utters, she writes, drips with rudeness. And Dumbledore says, accidental rudeness occurs alarmingly often. Is Dumbledore saying, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt? Is Dumbledore saying, I'm not going to take what you say as intentionally rude? He's not. What's he call Vernon's statement about, I don't mean to be rude? It's accidental rudeness. It's like he's saying, you can't help yourself. If somebody can't help themselves, then what's wrong? They don't have self-control. Okay? This is the first instance in this chapter where we see Dumbledore start to kind of teach a little bit of this. But not to Harry. To the Dursleys. Which we've already seen what? Arthur Weasley do the same thing. Okay? Accidental rudeness occurs alarmingly often. Best to say nothing at all, my dear man. In other words, when you open your mouth, Vernon, you don't intend it, but rudeness just comes blaring like a klaxon. Best to just keep your mouth closed. Oh, and this must be Petunia. Okay? Petunia comes in and she's kind of surprised. So, Dumbledore invites himself in. He makes himself comfortable. Little flick of the wand, and the couch comes up behind the three Dursleys, so they're now sitting. Harry's just kind of, standing over there watching this, like, this is the greatest thing in the world. Dumbledore pours them wine, or mulled mead. Pours it for them, draws their glasses, so their glasses are sitting beside their heads, and the glasses are just sitting there, and they keep sitting there, and they don't drink, and the glasses start doing this. Start just kind of gently tapping them, reminding them we're here. Vernon, will you get these ready things off us? And what does Dumbledore say? I'm sorry, but it would have been better manners to drink it, Notice how the tables are turned here. Who should be offering the drinks? I mean, they're the hosts. Right? Dumbledore is the guest, so to speak, in this house. So, he makes the drinks disappear, and he talks to them about Harry's upcoming birthday, about Lord Voldemort's return, about what he asked them to do when he left Harry in their charge. He says that Harry is in even greater danger now than the day when I left him upon your doorstep 15 years ago, with a letter explaining about his parents' murder, and expressing the hope that you would care for him as though he were your own. And he pauses. Why? Dramatic effect. And his voice remained light and calm. He gave no obvious sign of anger, but you did not do as I asked. You have never treated Harry as a son. He has known nothing but neglect and often cruelty at your hands. Where's the cruelty? Not loving him? Think of those memories Harry had that Snape saw. Did they ever stop Aunt Marge? Did they ever stop Dudley? Yeah. The best that can be said is that he has at least escaped the appalling damage you have inflicted upon the unfortunate boy sitting between you. And they look at Dudley. Dudley's like, what? What appalling damage? How is Dudley appallingly damaged? Spoiled him, made him into their own image. Richard, what did you say? Spoiled rotten. No self-control. He's an asshole, he's a jerk. Okay? What does he lack? Compassion, restraint, What does he lack that Harry has in spades? Not love. Okay? I'm not talking about that. Character. Character. Why? Because Dudley's never gone without. Take that back. Dudley has gone without. In what book did we see Dudley confront adversity? Notice, though, he didn't go on a diet. Aunt Petunia put him on a diet, which meant everyone went on the diet. How did he deal with that diet? Snuck food in. And, yeah. Okay. So how does he deal with adversity? Does he work to overcome it, or does he try to do an end run around it? He tries the end run. Not very successfully. Okay? So, us mistreat debtors. Dumbledore stops them. The magic I evoked 15 years ago means that Harry has powerful protection while he can still call this house home. However miserable he has been here, however unwelcome, however badly treated, you have at least grudgingly allowed him house room. Notice what Dumbledore doesn't call it. Okay, home. He doesn't call it home. He doesn't say, you have given Harry a home. He says, you have given him house room. Okay? Like a cupboard under the stairs. Notice, his first 10 years, he didn't even have a bedroom. He lived in a cupboard under the stairs. We were talking with somebody the other day. Don't remember who, might have been a cabbie or bus driver. You can rent in London cupboards under stairs, a single room, and it's a ridiculous price. It's like £600 a month for a literal cupboard. Cupboard like maybe 6 feet, 5 feet wide by 8 feet long. Big enough for a bed and dressers, or dresser. Right? And it is an exorbitant amount, like £500 or £600 a month. So, this magic, that is the magic I placed on Harry that protects him while he can call this place home, will cease to operate the moment Harry turns 17. In other words, when he becomes a man. Here's what I ask. Allow him to return once more to this house before his 17th birthday. When does he want Harry to be allowed to return? Christmas? Nope. Easter? Nope. Just before his birthday. It's the following year. Dumbledore's going to take Harry away at this point. Okay? None of the Dursleys said anything. Dudley's frowning slightly, still trying to figure out how he's been mistreated. Uncle Vernon looks as though he had something stuck in his throat, but Aunt Petunia's flushed. Why? Yeah. Shame. She's ashamed. She, because of what Dumbledore said, realizes the import and the gravity of what he's talking about. Okay? This has an interesting parallel with the beginning of Book 7, because we're going to see Harry leave. Number 4, Privet Drive, but we're going to see the Dursleys leave before Harry. Okay? And we'll talk about that when we get to it. Maybe we'll bring it up today. I was going to talk about that a little bit. Let's skip the stuff about Slughorn. Other than two things. Harry asks, why don't we just apparate into Slughorn's house? Okay, Dumbledore says. He doesn't actually say it's rude, but he says, courtesy, manners dictate we give another wizard the opportunity to deny us entry. Okay? And then Harry asks him, what happened to your hand? It's a thrilling tale. I have no time to explain now. Does he ever? Harry sees the ring when he has that first lesson with Dumbledore. Okay. And then he figures out, but Dumbledore never actually explains, well, Harry, here's what I did, I got Slytherin's ring, belonged to Lord Voldemort, and I tried to break it open, and this nasty curse got me and started to kill me from that moment on, and the clock was ticking. But that's exactly what happened. Dumbledore is dying now. Okay? So Dumbledore goes on to explain to Harry in that chapter on Slughorn about Inferi, because Harry's been dutifully reading his government pamphlet. So what are Inferi? Dumbledore. They're corpses. And what will Voldemort do with them? Prepare for the zombie apocalypse, He'll use them for his zombie apocalypse. Just before Dumbledore takes Harry to the burrow, or I guess it's maybe after they land in the garage, he talks to Harry about Sirius. Says, permit me to say, I think Sirius would have been proud of you. Harry swallowed. His voice seemed to have deserted him. He did not think he could stand to discuss Sirius. It had been painful enough to hear Uncle Vernon say his godfather's dead, and even worse to hear Sirius's name thrown out casually. It was cruel, says Dumbledore, that you and Sirius had such a short time together, a brutal ending to what it should have been a long and happy relationship. Harry's just focusing on that spider. Why? Because, the tears are about to flow. He could tell that Dumbledore understood, but he might even suspect that until his letter arrived, Harry spent nearly all his time at the Dursleys, lying on his bed, refusing meals, staring at the misted window, full of the chill emptiness that he had come to associate with Dementors. Harry, it's just hard to realize he won't write to me again. Okay? Dumbledore, Sirius represented much to you that you had never known before. Naturally, the loss is devastating. And Harry cuts him off. But while I was at the Dursleys, I realized I can't shut myself away or crack up. Okay, notice, those are his two options. Become a hermit or go crazy. He says, Sirius wouldn't have wanted that, would he? And anyway, life's too short. Look at Madame Bones, look at Emmeline Vance. It could be me, Ned, couldn't it? But if it is, and now he's talking fiercely, the testosterone and the adrenaline are pulsing through his body. If it is, what does he say? I'll make sure I take as many Death Eaters with me as I can. And Voldemort too, if I can manage it. The inner pirate comes out. And what happens in Book 7? How many Death Eaters does Harry ever take out? Yeah, 0. 0. Okay, he does the Cruciatus Curse on Electocaro. Not really taking him out, though. And he had good reason to. Because Electocaro didn't show any of this to McGonagall. Harry's defending McGonagall. And Dumbledore says, spoken both like your mother and father's son and Sirius's true godson. Way to go, Harry. Your mom and dad would be proud of you. And Sirius would be going, yeah. You think Dumbledore really means that? I think he does on one level. Notice Harry doesn't know yet what his greatest strength is. Dumbledore already told him in Book 5, your greatest strength is your ability to love. Okay? He thinks he's going to be a fighter. He's going to be a warrior. So, Dumbledore asks, you haven't told your friends yet, have you? You haven't told Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger. So he says, when Harry says no, Dumbledore says, good decision, but I think you ought to relax it in favor of your friends. Yes, I think they ought to know. You do them a disservice by not confiding something this important to them. Harry, I don't want to worry or frighten them. Dumbledore, or perhaps to confess that you are yourself worried and frightened. You need your friends, Harry. Shouldn't Harry know that from Book 1? How far would he have gotten after the Philosopher's Stone? Yeah, the big three-headed dog would have eaten him. Okay? He wouldn't have gotten anywhere without them. Notice what else Dumbledore is saying here. Harry says, I don't want to worry them or frighten them. Dumbledore, or maybe it's that you're afraid to confess that you yourself are worried and frightened. Notice the language he uses there. Confess. To whom? To his friends. What? I'm scared. You know whatless. Why? It's either me or the big guy. It's either me or Voldemort. One of us has got to kill the other. What does the prophecy actually say?
Well, the other survives.
Neither can live while the other survives. So if a part of one survives, neither of them can live. So what does it actually mean? If neither of them can live while one of them survives, both of them have kind of got to die. Why? Well, because of what the idiot Voldemort does. What does he do at the end of book 4? He puts a bit of Harry into him. Into him, Voldemort. So, he kills Harry, but Harry's only mostly dead. Why? Because there's a little bit of Harry now coursing in Voldemort's veins. Harry can't be fully dead until that is also dead. So, let's skip a bunch. Go on to chapter 8. And I skipped all the stuff about creature. Will or won't. Why is the chapter titled that? What must creature do? He must respond. Is he going to obey Harry or not? If the magical charm, essentially bequeathing creature to Harry, holds, then Harry can give him an order and creature has to obey it. Okay? Which he does. Not necessarily a pleasant thing for Harry to have, but there it is. So, they get to school. Slughorn's announced as a new teacher, and what else? I mean, the chapter's titled Snape Victorious. Why? Finally, he gets to teach defense against the dark arts. Okay? Dumbledore talks about how dangerous the present situation is. Talks about, not using secret passageways and all those kinds of things. And we see in the chapter, that's the next chapter, Half-Blood Prince, McGonagall's going over people's class lists. They're figuring out what courses they're taking that year. And she's going over Neville's. And we find out Neville's done well in some courses, like herbology. Okay. He had an outstanding. Defends against the dark arts, exceeds expectations because of Harry. But transfiguration, no, not good enough to go on. Neville hangs his head. He's deflated. Why do you want to continue? She asks. I've never felt that you had the impression that you never had the impression you particularly liked it. Then he mentions something about his grandmother. I love this about McGonagall. It's high time your grandmother learned to be proud of the grandson she's got rather than the one she thinks she ought to have, particularly after what happened at the ministry. What does she mean by that particularly clause? Who knows what happened at the ministry? Everyone. It was in the Daily Prophet afterwards. Okay? Neville turns pink. She says, no, you can't. You're not taking my class. Why not try for a Newt in Charms? My grandmother thinks Charms is a soft option. take charms. And then McGonagall probably violates a bunch of Ministry of Magic laws. If it wasn't the Ministry of Magic, if it were the United States federal government, she's violating a whole bunch of laws. Okay, FERPA Act and such, or FERCA or whatever it's called. She says, and I shall drop Augusta a line reminding her that just because she failed her charms, owls, the subject is not necessarily worthless. Okay, notice, his grandmother failed her charms, owl. What did Neville get? Exceeds expectations. Okay, so he ought to be thumbing his nose at her. Okay? Let me go back to the notes. Yeah, really. And a vulture handbag, I think he does. So, here he goes off to his first lesson with Dumbledore. What's he thinking? I mean, Dumbledore tells him, Harry, kind of after the debacle of occupancy lessons last year, I'm going to teach you myself. What's Harry think? Before the actual first lesson. He's going to learn magic, man. This is going to be cool. He's going to be able to just flick his wand, and there's going to be, silver stuff. He'll be able to knock all kinds of people out. And instead, what's his first lesson? Okay, what kind of story time? Take a trip down memory lane. I mean, that's how Dumbledore puts it. Here he sees the pensive, he's kind of like, I'm not getting near that thing. I've, twice bitten. And what does Dumbledore show him? We see Marvolo Gaunt. We see Tom Ogden. We see Tom Riddle. Okay. Voldemort's father. We see Merope. And Harry says, wait, Marvolo? That's Voldemort's grandfather? And then Harry, the gears are starting to move. So, Merope, that was Voldemort's mother? Dumbledore, it does, and it so happens we also had a glimpse of Voldemort's father. I wonder whether you noticed. And Harry's like, wait a second, and those two ended up married? Describe Merope's, home life. It's abusive. Okay. Put it on a continuum with, ideal and the absolute worst. Where's the Weasleys? It's kind of over at this end, right? Where's the Malfoys? It's probably a little bit back more towards the middle. Where's the Gaunts? It's pretty far down at this end. Okay. Describe Marvolo Gaunt. How about nasty piece of work?
Yeah.
What about his son? A psychopath. Nastier piece of work. Right? What about Merope? Trying to survive. Okay? Trying to survive. What does she do to Tom Riddle? Okay. What does she do to Tom Riddle? Say it, Vicky.
It's essentially rape.
Yeah. Not essentially rape.
It is rape.
I mean, the love potion is what? It's a date rape drug. Okay. That she uses not just once, apparently, but again and again and again and again and again. Okay. Why? What's the difference between Merope and a rapist? I love the way you put this. She's in love.
She's not doing it for a power play.
She's not doing it for a power play. Okay. What does she think will happen eventually? Kind of hard when he's drugged up all the time, but Okay, extrapolate.
Right.
Explain that a little more, Catherine. She wants him to be her knight.
Now I'm totally flustered.
Take away from
perfect
the hell
family.
she wants to have a
She wants him to remove her from her horrible existence and to have what? The happy ever after ending. I mean, take a fairy tale, and what role is she playing? Sorry, let me make it more clear. Take a specific fairy tale. Cinderella. Only it's not the evil stepmother and stepsisters, it's Dad and her brother, who are really creepy. Okay? So, how does this affect Harry? With whom?
Voldemort, and then
Okay, first he sympathizes with Merripe, right?
yeah, a little.
Because this is pretty similar to his upbringing with the Dursleys. Do we ever hear about Dudley washing dishes? No, we do hear about Harry. Do we ever hear about Dudley doing lawnwork? No, but we do hear about Harry. Do we ever hear about Dudley, I think, washing the car? No, but we do hear about Harry. Harry's kind of like a slave. Merripe is essentially a slave for the Gaunts. Harry, they end up married? He said in disbelief, unable to imagine two people less likely to fall in love. James, Lily.
Right.
Okay. Not quite the same, but... So Dumbledore says, well, can you think of any measure Merripe could have taken? And Harry suggests the love potion. Harry asks, but she died, didn't she? Because wasn't Voldemort brought up in an orphanage? Dumbledore, yes. And now a little bit of guessing. But she did have his baby. Actually, let me back up. We must do a certain amount of guessing here, although I do think it is difficult to deduce what happened. Do not think it is difficult. You see, within a few months of their runaway marriage, Tom Riddle reappeared at the Manor House in Little Angleton. By the way, on some of your responses that you wrote about Gloucester, one of our guides, the one that wasn't with me, I think had been smoking or drinking something before the tour, because several of you, the other group was told, apparently, that J.K. Rowling used to bring her students to Gloucester Cathedral. J.K. Rowling has never taught in the United Kingdom.
I thought she said that J.K. Rowling might have come on a trip. Yeah, she's like,
Okay, that's not what several of you said. Several of you wrote J.K. Rowling
She said.
led her students to
Yeah.
Gloucester. She never taught in the UK. She taught in Portugal. Okay, and I misstated the other day when I said, you know, he had the kind of the whirlwind affair, got married, got pregnant, got divorced, etc. She was married, got pregnant, I believe, had Jessica, and then was divorced all within a year. They were married in October of 92, I think it was, and divorced in 93. Okay. And then she went off to Scotland and felt like she was a complete loser and failure and has had the last laugh. Yeah, probably, to put it mildly. So, Dumbledore then goes on. Tom Riddle reappeared at the Manor House without his wife. The rumor flew around the neighborhood he was talking of being hoodwinked and taken in. Okay, Dumbledore mentions the enchantment. And Harry says, but she did have his baby. Dumbledore, but not until a year after they were married. Tom Riddle left her while she was still pregnant. And I just read one thing today that said that her J.K. Rowling's husband, Jorge something or other, left after the baby was born, but that's the first time I've read that. Everything else I've read was that he left before, that they were separated before her daughter was married, before her daughter was born. Which, because I've sometimes thought, maybe personal history's coming into play here. Okay? So Harry asks, what went wrong? Why'd the potion stop working? Dumbledore, don't think it did. What did she do? Stop giving it to him. She wanted him to love her for her. Stop the potion, and he immediately flees. Okay? Perhaps she thought he would stay for the baby's sake. If so, she was wrong on both accounts. He left her, never saw her again, and never troubled to discover what became of his son. And I never thought about this until just now. Book 7. Scene when Remus Lupin comes to Harry, Ron, and Hermione at number 12 Grimmauld Place. What?
I just knew you were going to bring it up.
Why?
I don't know, just like, I guess I kind of realized it too once you said book 7. I went, oh.
What's Lupin do? Or let me rephrase that. What does Harry say Lupin is doing? Running away. I mean, his kind of final coup de grace comment is what? Harry's. Imagine. The man who taught me to fight Dementors. How's it end? A coward. It's when he calls Lupin a coward, Lupin jumps up out of his chair and zaps Harry with his wand. And Ron's like, oi, mate, that's too far. Harry's, no, it's not. No, it's not. And we're told in that scene, Harry has these images scrolling through his mind like a film. Of what? Broken families. Okay? She chose love rather than magic. Did Voldemort know that? Notice what she didn't choose, though. I mean, this is kind of what bothers Harry. She doesn't choose to live for her son. Okay? We're going to see a young Tom Riddle come talk to Dumbledore when he asks for a teaching position. And they're going to start to talk about love. And Tom Riddle says, well, where better can I learn than here? Okay? And he says, nothing I have seen in my travels around the world has shown me that your brand of magic, your kind of magic is more powerful or stronger than mine. Anybody remember what Dumbledore replies? Maybe you're looking in the wrong place. Where's Tom Riddle looking? Louder. Back home? Where else? End of a wand? In a spell book? In a charm book? In a potions book? In other words, he's looking for the power, the magic of love, where? In magic. What does Dumbledore mean? Maybe you're looking in the wrong place. People? Where else? Deeper. Deeper. Keep going. Where? You gotta turn inward. But Rowling has said in an interview, Voldemort is incapable of love. Incapable. Not that he doesn't. She has said he is incapable of love. For one reason. And I don't know about you, this to me is morally abhorrent. This idea that she has said in this interview. It's kind of really makes me wonder a lot about her whole thing Anybody know what it is? He was conceived under the effects of a love potion. Therefore, he is unable to love. In other words, he was conceived not out of love. Therefore, he's unable to love. Okay, extrapolate from that to the real world. What does it mean? Child conceived in rape is incapable of love. That's bullshit. That is complete and utter bullshit.
It's even more than rape. I mean, even
Well, yeah.
one night stand.
One night stand isn't love. Or even a 2 or 3 or 4 night stand. A weekend together. I mean, a couple years ago. I shouldn't go there. I shouldn't go there.
You already started.
One
You
of these
started.
classes that I taught, one of the students, it was like the first or second night here. Out of the club, met some guy, and I don't think I ever spent a night back in the dorm. It was the full 4 weeks living with this guy. Love? Yeah, I don't think so. So, if she had gotten pregnant, would that child be incapable of love? I mean, that's why I said this is an abhorrent idea. Because if Voldemort is incapable of love, what does that say about everything Dumbledore says to him? It's completely meaningless. And it's mean. It's not Voldemort's fault, so what should Dumbledore do? Should kill him.
Just let him know his misery. It's just-
I mean, it's like a wounded puppy. You know, just do the deed. Sorry.
Oh my god.
I mean, if you take that mentality, then when Dumbledore tells Harry, you have so much of this power that Voldemort knows not of, can you really blame him for doing what he does? I mean, he would be a true sociopath. I mean, he would be the only really true sociopath. Because even sociopaths that we have today that are diagnosed, full bore sociopaths, often there's something they love. It might be themselves. Does Voldemort love himself? No, he just doesn't want to die. He's just afraid of the other place. Okay? So, go ahead.
Love is, yeah, it's bad and it explains why Voldemort does everything he does, but it doesn't mean he can't feel other things. And loving things and liking things are two different. It doesn't say it can't feel any kind of compassion or kindness or anything like that. This is love.
Dumbledore kind of makes it pretty clear he doesn't feel any compassion.
Yes, but
Go ahead, Catherine.
no, I think it was all that you your kindness, compassion, that comes from love. Like is even a form of love. It's just not as vivid.
C.S. Lewis wrote a little book called The Four Loves, where he talks about the different kinds of love. And love, like, falls under, I can't remember which one. Okay? But there's sexual love, and romantic love, there's divine love, there's this friendship kind of love, and there's a companionship kind of love. Okay? Dumbledore, is essentially saying Voldemort's without them all. And if we take Rowling's idea, then what else does that do? Is he responsible? In some sense, he's not. Okay?
It undercuts her whole emphasis on choices, too.
I don't believe it's not canon.
That's why I keep saying, if she'd only shut up. Most authors don't comment on their works once they're written like this. Tolkien never really did. I mean, yeah, he replied in letters to individuals, but he never tried to explain something that somebody saw as a problem. He just kind of left it alone. Okay? Same with C.S. Lewis. I don't think Stephen King has commented a lot on some of his stuff, especially things like the Dark Tower series. Because if he does, he's going to open himself to all kinds of problems because there's all kinds of problems. Okay? But she wants to maintain this kind of control over it, rather than let the work rise or fall on its own. If she doesn't like what she wrote, what should she do? Do what other authors do. Revise it for a second edition. Because what would every damn fool in this room do? And she could fund how many more charities, And guess what? Another whole set of movies, because somebody would bankroll that. I mean, if it were a revised edition, oh yeah, easily. Yeah. We're going to see where else we want to go.
It's 20 feet away. We're sitting fell in one spot. I'm just like, what just happened?
This book is right. Looks extra.
You just
Dumbledore. My dad made Grimble play some
the revised edition.
Okay, let's go on. What chapter to go on to? Okay, let's pick up with the chapter The Secret Riddle. And Dumbledore, you or me?
So I was going on about like maybe Cedric was on a hill and like the revised edition, Harry's gonna be like Accio Cedric. It was bad.
Okay, in the chapter The Secret Riddle, Harry has another lesson with Dumbledore, and Dumbledore says, you'll remember, I'm sure, that we left the tale of Lord Voldemort's beginnings at the point where the handsome muggle Tom Riddle had abandoned his witch wife. Maripe was left alone in London. Dumbledore, how do you know she was in London? Well, because of the evidence of one Correctus Burke, etc. Okay? So we find out that she sells the locket for a steal. And Harry's like, he only gave her 10 galleons. Notice what that tells us about Harry.
He's like, that's not fair. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fair. It was worth a lot more than that. What else? Harry doesn't understand business
No.
at all. Okay? So, Dumbledore says, Caractacus Burke was not famed for his generosity, so we know that near the end of her pregnancy, Maripe was alone in London, in desperate need of gold, desperate enough to sell her one and only valuable possession, the locket that was one of Marvolo's treasured family heirlooms. Harry, but she could do magic. She could have got food and everything for herself by magic, couldn't she? Notice what Harry's thinking. Same thing Ron thinks in Book 7. Well, she could have just waved a wand and created a, turkey feast or whatever. Dumbledore, maybe. But it's my belief, guessing, but I'm sure I'm right, that when her husband abandoned her, Maripe stopped using magic. Why? I don't think she wanted to be a witch any longer. If he turned away from her because she was a witch, maybe she thought, if I'm not a witch anymore. Notice, by the way, Mike Rowling be suggesting something there about human relationships? Okay. What else? You're attracted to somebody, you get really close to them, maybe you get married, but there are little things that really drive you nuts. And you think, I can change them. Ain't gonna happen. Don't even try. Just don't go there. Okay? So, Harry, she wouldn't even stay alive for her son? Could you possibly be feeling sorry for Lord Voldemort? No, said Harry quickly. Why does he say it quickly? Because he is. And he says no, because he doesn't want Dumbledore to think that he is. But she had a choice, didn't she? Not like my mother. Move aside, you silly girl. Ma had a choice. Your mother had a choice too. Yes, Privet Riddle chose death in spite of a son who needed her. Do not judge her too harshly, Harry. Kind of channeling Gandalf here. She was greatly weakened by long suffering, and she never had your mother's courage. Okay. Greatly weakened by long suffering. How long? Her whole life. Okay. So what's Harry showing here? This is empathy. This is empathy for whom? For two people, actually. It's for Privet, and it's for her son. Okay? And she never had your mother's courage. So they go off into Dumbledore's memory. Let's skip a bunch again. And we go and we meet young 11-year-old Tom Riddle. And notice what Harry immediately notices about him. He kind of thinks he's special, doesn't he? Well, it's because he is special. Tortures other little kids, takes their little animals, little wounded puppy, takes them off to the dark cave and plays with them there. All right? Harry notices just before he leaves that lesson, the ring's gone. Dumbledore says yes. Let's skip a bunch again. Slughorn has his party, which Harry doesn't really want to go to. And he eavesdrops, he doesn't just overhear, he intentionally eavesdrops on two people. Who? Snape and Draco. Okay? What's he hear Snape doing? Trying to get information. What is Draco doing? How's Draco treating Snape? Oh.
Yeah, like out goes the respect and everything.
Head of house? And Draco's essentially giving him the middle finger. Many times. On different levels. And notice how Snape doesn't respond. I mean, he doesn't castigate Draco for that. Okay? He almost treats Draco like an equal. Harry hears all this. And what happens? Harry goes, he tells Ron and Hermione. And Harry says, he said he promised Malfoy's mother to protect him, that he'd made an unbreakable oath or something. Ron, unbreakable vow? Nah, he can't have. Are you sure? Harry, yeah, I'm sure. Why? What does it mean? Well, you can't break an unbreakable vow. Yeah, I'd worked that much out. Ron, you die. Fred and George tried to get me to make one when I was about 5.
Seriously, what
Well, how many owls would the Weasleys have gotten
Follow
from...
it. How are they going to be able
I mean, I realize we've already accepted Fred as a genius, but like,
What do you have to have?
wands.
What do you have to have a wand? Else do you have to have a wand for? Transfiguration. You're going to turn something into a spider. You know, back at the Quidditch World Cup, what was little Freddie or Johnny or Billy or whatever doing with the
I'm making
father's
this
wand?
wand,
Using, making slugs get big and shrinking them back down, and mom was pissed about it, and then slug bust or something.
As far as the knowing who did the magic, they can't tell who does magic.
Yeah, but you would think the Weasleys would be getting an awful lot of letters from the Ministry of Magic, and
So notice.
somebody would be, coming down on Arthur and Molly for not properly watching their children, let's say. I know they got a lot of kids. It's hard to know which ones.
Well, they don't know who did it. It could have been Molly and Arthur.
If you're kids with the Weasley twins, who would you always?
No, it's not that it would have been Molly or Arthur, because Molly and Arthur are licensed. They can perform magic.
But they
But
It's
they can't tell. They only know when magic is performed. They don't know who's performing
right,
magic.
right. Yeah, my point is the Ministry of Magic would then, it seems, be sending an awful lot of letters to the Weasley household. I would think parents would be able to put two and two together and figure out which of the 7 children are doing this. It's not going to be Bill or Charlie, or Percy. They're good kids. It's not Ron because he's too young. It's not Jenny because she's too young. Who does that leave? Process of elimination. And look at their personalities. Okay?
It's the Weasley toddlers again.
Yeah, and, like there's probably a special letter hole for them. Or owl, Maybe that's where
just go
Ron...
hand deliver it, so aren't they gonna work?
Maybe Pigwidgeon actually worked for the Ministry of Magic, and the reason he's nearly dead was because he kept having to bring these... Errol, sorry. Pigwidgeon's a later one.
Probably just hand him to Arthur.
Just be like,
Well, yeah, that too.
Here's like 12.
And Ron says, I nearly did too. I was holding hands with Fred and everything when Dad found us. He went mental. Only time I've ever seen Dad as angry as Mom. Fred reckons his left buttock has never been the same since.
Why is Fred the one that got in trouble for that? Did George just walk on it?
Well, it's Fred and George tried. So maybe George runs faster.
Yeah.
Fred's
Let's see here. Okay. They're talking in the chapter. Oh, which chapter is that? In A Very Frosty Christmas. Harry asks, they're at the Weasleys. Harry's telling Mr. Weasley and Lupin about what he overheard between Draco and Snape. And Mr. Weasley says, has it occurred to you, Harry, that Snape was simply pretending? Okay. Now, in the Kindle version, there's a question mark there. In the print version, there's no question mark. It's a statement. Yeah, it's a dash,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Kindle version, they made it into a question rather than an assertion. Harry, pretending to offer help so that he could find out what Malfoy's up to? Yeah, I thought you'd say that. But how do we know? Okay? How do we know? This is the question in philosophy of epistemology. How do we know what we know? Do we know it through logic? Do we know it through reason? Do we know it through our sensory perceptions? Okay, is it empirical, in other words? This question, how do we know, becomes one of the central issues of Book 7. Harry wants to know everything. Okay? Look at how Lupin replies. It isn't our business to know. It's Dumbledore's business. Dumbledore trusts Severus, and that ought to be good enough for all of us. Harry wants to know why Dumbledore trusts Severus. Harry wants to know why Severus is trustworthy. Lupin says it shouldn't matter. Dumbledore trusts him, and what's the next part of the equation? We trust Dumbledore. Okay? How do they trust Dumbledore? Louder, Vicky.
Blindly.
Blindly, completely, okay, implicitly. Harry, but just say Dumbledore's wrong about Snape. People have said it many times. It comes down to whether or not you trust Dumbledore's judgment. I do, therefore I trust Severus. Dumbledore trusts Severus. I trust Dumbledore, therefore I trust Severus. Harry, but Dumbledore can make mistakes. He says it himself. And do you honestly like Snape? Notice the problem in Harry's logic there. He's equating liking with trusting. I neither like nor dislike Severus, says Lupin. That's a lie. He does dislike him. Okay? You can't be neutral there. No, Harry, I'm speaking the truth. Okay? So, Harry, again and again and again, is saying, I want to know. I don't want to trust. I want to know. So, how do they know? Because Dumbledore, quote unquote, knows. What happens at the end of the novel? Snape kills Dumbledore. How do they know that Severus was trustworthy when the one who placed all his trust in Snape is now dead? What happens to their belief/faith in Dumbledore? And by there, I mean not just Harry's. Lupin's as well. McGonagall's, Hagrid's, Flitwick's, Arthur's. They're all like destroyed. Oh, Dumbledore trusted him. We don't know exactly why, but he trusted him. You know, some of us were, I don't know, really. Okay? So, when you have these people who've known Dumbledore for a whole lot longer than Harry did, who placed all their faith and trust and belief in Dumbledore, and then it appears that all that faith, trust, and belief was what? Misplaced. Because the person that Dumbledore trusted his life with was killed. Okay? So, Scrimgeour shows up. Okay, so notice what Harry has just done in that scene with Lupin and Arthur. He's raised doubt about Harry. He's not sure about Harry. About Dumbledore. Okay? He's like, Scrimgeour comes in, and what does he want? He wants Harry to explain. He wants Ron to explain. He wants Hermione to explain certain things. Okay? But he finishes by saying, Dumbledore's man through and through, aren't you? Harry says, yep, glad we got that right. Glad we got that worked out. And yet, seemingly, 5 minutes before, he was saying, well, Dumbledore's not God. Dumbledore doesn't know everything. Dumbledore makes mistakes. So why does he now suddenly go to the, Dumbledore's my man, I'm with him? Okay, better option, why else? He's loyal, and what's happening in the scene with Scrimgeour? He's attacking Dumbledore. And Harry, being the true Gryffindor that he is, always comes to the defense of those who aren't able to defend themselves. Dumbledore's not there. So, Harry rises to the occasion. They talk about whether or not Harry's the chosen one. Scrimgeour would like to see Harry, you know, coming in and out of the Ministry of Magic, kind of whipping the V for victory sign, you know, we're going to get him, etc. Harry's not going to be a mascot. What's his final appeal to Scrimgeour? What does he essentially do to show him he doesn't trust the Ministry? He shows the scars on his hand. Okay? So, notice what we see in these two scenes. Lupin trusts, believes in Dumbledore. Why? Because Dumbledore's actions in the past have shown he's worthy of that trust and belief. Scrimgeour says what? It's what people believe that's important, but not why they believe it. He wants people to believe Harry is helping the Ministry, whether or not Harry is actually helping the Ministry. So we have two different kinds of belief being proposed here. One, a belief based on experience. One, a belief based on what? Lies. Complete lies. Right? Scrimgeour wants people to have blind faith in the Ministry of Magic. Lupin doesn't have blind faith in Dumbledore. It's faith based upon his past experiences. His personal, Dumbledore allowed him to come to school as a werewolf. Dumbledore allowed him to come to school as a teacher, being a werewolf. And everything else Dumbledore's done through the Order of the Phoenix and such. Okay? So notice, Scrimgeour and the Ministry, they don't care whether Harry really is the chosen one. They just want people to think that he is. For them, it doesn't matter whether there really is a chosen one. All right? Let's see here. I'll skip a bunch. We find out what happened to Morphin. Sent to Azkaban for what reason? And what? He didn't do it. And notice what Dumbledore says there. Dumbledore tried to get him out. Why? As awful and horrible as Morphin is, he didn't deserve to be in prison. Okay? Dumbledore's interest there is in the truth. Harry has another lesson. And Dumbledore says, let's see here. We're now going to go into memories and things that are murkier and stranger. And he starts to talk about Voldemort and the castle and such. Hold on here. Yeah, I need to take a break from it. I gotta go blow my nose. We're going to take about a 5-minute break. We're going to pick up in the memory when Voldemort comes into Dumbledore's office. So give me about 5 minutes. I can go blow my nose in the rest of this.
Never seen him take breaks. So, I'm not entirely
That's gonna give you Well, I mean, he gave us Voldemort's making them, and I heard about that. He says in this book of history, no specific doesn't have it. So fucking choice. They wouldn't know what they were gonna happen. But they couldn't have any thing that happened until their event.
Right, no, yeah.
No, instead they were like, oh, like, it's like they have the first proximity to the person. There's magic form in
She's like,
I don't know how.
And really, it's more there's a plot.
what? What?
Next to friends.
And then, like, it's sporadically doesn't apply. Because, like, Dumbledore has magic going down the nurse's house and so, like, they're still coming. Why the action does that not matter?
Yeah. Or that I maybe.
I can't believe it. Right.
She's massively inconsistent.
Okay, let's pick back up. In this scene, well, I might pick up just a little bit earlier. Harry and Dumbledore are talking about kind of the relics of the founders of the school and about the school itself. And that's when Harry goes into Dumbledore's memory. Here's the knock on the door. Harry lets out a gasp. Voldemort had entered the room. His features were not those Harry had seen emerge from the Great Stone Cauldron almost 2 years ago. They were not as snake-like. And there's something bothering my sinuses. They were not as snake-like. The eyes were not yet scarlet, the face not yet mask-like, and yet he was no longer handsome Tom Riddle. Why isn't he the way he appeared when Harry saw him 2 years previously? Rain.
Oh, wait. Oh,
Yeah. He split his soul less at this point. How many people has he killed? Possibly. Dad and grandparents. So maybe 3. Probably not more. Not at this point. Okay. So, it was as though his features had been burned and blurred. They were waxy, oddly distorted. The whites of the eyes now had a permanently bloody look, though the pupils were not yet the slits that Harry knew they would become. He was wearing a long black cloak. Do that. So, good evening, Tom. Won't you sit down? Notice Dumbledore shows manners. Thank you, says Voldemort. Heard you become headmaster, worthy choice, blah, blah, blah. The chit-chat. Dumbledore offers him a drink. Okay. So, Tom, to what do I owe the pleasure? And every time Dumbledore says Tom, it's like Voldemort twitches. He doesn't like being called Tom. I know what you are known as, but to me, I am afraid you will always be Tom Riddle. What is this kind of like that we saw earlier in Book 5? So, Big D now, huh? But to me, you'll always be Ickledidikins. This is Dumbledore, headmaster, talking to former students. You'll always be little Tom Riddle. Harry notices kind of the atmosphere in the room drop a few degrees. Dumbledore's refusal to use Voldemort's chosen name was a refusal to allow Voldemort to dictate the terms of the meeting. I'm surprised Harry picked up on that, frankly. Okay? So, Tom Riddle says, I've been out, I've seen much, I've done much. Dumbledore says, I certainly do know you have seen and done much. Rumors of your doings have reached your old school, Tom. I should be sorry to believe half of them. Listen to Voldemort's reply. Greatness inspires envy. That is, other people want that greatness. Envy engenders spite because they can't have it. Then they get full of spite. Spite spawns lies because they can't have that greatness. They do what? They start to spin lies about the thing that they cannot achieve on their own. You must know this, Dumbledore. In other words, surely the same thing has happened to you. Dumbledore, you call it greatness, what you've been doing? Certainly, I've experimented. I pushed the boundaries of magic further, perhaps, than they have ever been pushed. What does he mean he has pushed the boundaries of magic? What are the boundaries? What is any boundary? Yeah, it's a restriction. It's a mark that delimits what that is. So, it's like, magic only goes this far. What has Tom Riddle done? He said, no, magic now goes like that. This area, I've pushed it. Okay? You know, we don't use that phrase pushing the boundaries. We use push the envelope more. Okay? He's like a scientist here. What does he mean? I've experimented. Okay? What the purpose of the university, so-called today, some people believe, is, to expand human knowledge. Well, that's a bunch of BS. But it's to how do you expand human knowledge? Think about that for a moment. Do you come up with a new interpretation of Shakespeare's King Lear? That's not expanding human knowledge. Okay? So how do you expand human knowledge? Do you make 2 + 2 now equal 5 somehow? No. How do you do it? Okay? If we're talking about, chemistry or physics or something, you break the smallest known unit down into something even smaller. Or you build a new kind of bomb. That's the implication that's being discussed here. Or you take a technique and you apply it in some way it's never been applied before. Cloning. And you bring back something that's been dead. There are attempts to clone mastodons. Mastodons have been dead for 10,000 years. Or the woolly mammoth, they've been dead 10,000 years. Or, Jurassic Park. Okay? If only that were the truth. When Michael Crichton wrote Jurassic Park, he wrote Jurassic Park because scientists were already at work on gene sequencing and trying to figure out how to bring back ancient species that Ian Malcolm famously says in the novel. There's a reason there's 65 million years between the T-Rex and us. To the T-Rex, we're dinner. Okay? Or kind of like ant meet boot, if you're familiar with the illusion. So, Dumbledore, of some kinds of magic. Of some. What does Dumbledore mean, of some kinds of magic? What are the kinds of magic Tom Riddle has been pushing? Okay, dark arts, yeah. Is that it? It's the kind of magic that comes from a wand. Or the kind of magic that comes from a potion. Or that comes from a charm. Okay? Those kinds of magic. In other words, the technique of magic. Remember the day when I wrote down all the varieties of magic you could learn at Hogwarts? And there was only one that corresponded to our world kind of magic? Divination, which in our world is a complete fraud. Okay? Of some. Of others you remain, forgive me, woefully ignorant. What others? The old argument. What does Voldemort mean? We've been around this block. He and Dumbledore have had this conversation before. But nothing I have seen in the world has supported your famous pronouncements that love is more powerful than my kind of magic, Dumbledore. Notice where he's looked. In the world. Dumbledore, perhaps you've been looking in the wrong places. So if you're not going to look in the world, where are you going to look? Inside, beyond the world? Well, what better place to start my fresh researches than here at Hogwarts? It's like Dumbledore's just sitting there going, you damn fool. You still don't get it, do you? But if Rowling is right about that idea we talked about, can Tom Riddle ever know? No, he can't. And Dumbledore should say, poor Tom, you were born under a love potion. You'll never know the real power of love. And kill him then and there. Will you let me return? Will you let me share my knowledge? Blah, 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 blah. Dumbledore's, no, hell no, I'm not going to do that. It'd be stupid. Tell me what you really want. Let us speak openly. Why have you come here tonight, surrounded by henchmen, to request a job we both know you do not want? Oh, you want to come back to Hogwarts. That's clear. But why don't you try an open request? In other words, be honest. Be honest. Voldemort, if you do not want to give me a job, of course I don't. I don't think for a moment you expected me to. Nevertheless, you came here. This is your final word? It is. And we have nothing more to say to each other. Dumbledore, no, nothing. Notice what Dumbledore says. Time is long gone when I could frighten you with a burning wardrobe and force you to make repayment for your crimes. But I wish I could, Tom. I wish I could. Could Dumbledore put Voldemort under Imperius curse? No, he could not. Why not? Do you think Voldemort has strength of character? Strength of character doesn't mean that you're a moral person. It means you've overcome adversity. Has Tom Riddle overcome adversity? Damn right he has. Anybody who would live in that orphanage run by Mrs. Cole, the name means something. Notice she's not Mrs. Fluffy. She's not Mrs. Light and Happy. She's not Mrs. Joy. Cole is what? Cold, hard, dark, lifeless. Okay? The time is long gone, he says, but I wish I could. For a second, Harry's thinking, careful, Dumbledore. But then the moment had passed, Voldemort had turned, the door was closing. Harry, why did he come back? Did you ever find out? Ideas, but no more. How you doing on that Slughorn memory, Harry? How is Harry doing? How's he been doing? How well has he tried?
He asked so he can say he asked, and then just gave up.
Okay. Notes. Let's see here. So we learn in the chapter The Seer Overheard when Harry's talking with Trelawney and she's mentioning the prophecy and she says, there is a commotion outside the door. It flew open. There was that rather uncouth barman standing with Snape, who was waffling about having come the wrong way up the stairs. She says, I myself rather thought he'd been apprehended eavesdropping on my interview with Dumbledore. You see, he himself was seeking a job at the time. No doubt hoped to pick up tips. And what does Harry now know?
And told Voldemort not to go after his parents.
So, and Harry's thinking, what does all that mean? Snape killed my parents. I mean, that's Harry's kind of logic. Snape and Peter Pettigrew together had sent Voldemort hunting after Lily and James and their son. So, Harry goes to Dumbledore and tells Dumbledore what he knows. And Dumbledore says, Professor Snape made a terrible mistake. He was still in Lord Voldemort's employ on the night he heard the first half of Professor Trelawney's prophecy. He told his master, and Harry's like, he didn't change. How do you know? Does Dumbledore make a fatal mistake by not telling Harry here? Well, if he told Harry here, what would happen to the rest of this book and pretty much all of book 7? He'd become a lot shorter. Okay? What does he say? I am sure, Dumbledore says. I trust Severus Snape completely. Okay? What is it we learn in book 7 in the memory? When Snape gives Harry his memory, and Harry goes and he watches all of Snape's memory. When Snape agrees to protect Harry, what injunction does he put on Dumbledore? And how does Dumbledore reply? How would that change the course of the novels? Would we think what we think about Snape in the first novel? No, we wouldn't. Okay? So, they go off to the cave. Notice, for the first time, Dumbledore issues what to Harry? Orders, commands. Do everything I say, and don't disobey. Okay? So he goes off to the cave, and we see how they have to get into the cave. And we come to the basin after we see the, inferi and the water and everything. And Dumbledore says, in fact, about those inferi, Harry's looking at them as they're crossing the water, and he's a little leery about these corpses in the water. And Dumbledore says, we don't need to worry about them at the moment. Harry, at the moment? Like, when do we? There's nothing to be feared from a body, Harry, any more than there is anything to be feared from the darkness. Lord Voldemort, who of course secretly fears both. Why would he fear a body? Bodies end. He secretly fears both, so he disagrees, that is, he fears the darkness. But once again, he reveals his own lack of wisdom. It is the unknown we fear when we look upon death and darkness, nothing more. Okay? Dumbledore there is channeling Plato, who's channeling Socrates. So, they get to the basin, and Dumbledore thinks, got to drink the potion. Harry's like, I'll drink. No. So Dumbledore starts to drink. But he doesn't want to. What is he seeing when he starts to yell? Ariana. And? Gellert. Grindelwald. I doubt that he called him Grindelwald. I mean, let's be honest here. It's probably Gell. Okay. So, Harry's hearing Dumbledore say all this stuff. Make it stop, my fault. And Harry's talking to him because Harry doesn't understand Dumbledore's not quite talking to him. Okay? But notice he keeps making him drink. Drink. and they finally get the locket out. The end of that chapter, just before the lightning struck tower, Harry says to Dumbledore, "It's going to be all right, sir." Harry said over and over again, more worried by Dumbledore's silence than he had been by his weakened voice. "We're nearly there. I can operate us both back. Don't worry." Dumbledore. "I am not worried, Harry," said Dumbledore, his voice a little stronger despite the freezing water. "I am with you." What does that mean? Why? What has Harry done to merit this trust?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, he's been loyal. Harry, look at Harry's words again. "We're nearly there, don't worry." I am not worried, Harry. I am with you. Is he not worried because I am with you? Because I'm Dumbledore, after all. No, the import of his words were, I'm not worried, Harry, because you are with me. Doesn't that kind of turn the tables of power? You're the protector. You're the, what did Scrimgeour call him? Chosen one.
That's also, it's the reversal of what Harry said. When Dumbledore takes Harry to go to Slughorn's, Harry says, "I'm not worried, sir, I'm with you."
Mm-hmm.
But, sorry. I thought Dumbledore was the one who said, "I don't think anything will happen to us tonight. You are with me here."
Yeah, he does say that at the beginning.
We talked about it and how it's like, it's almost like not like the coming of age. Oh God, what's the phrase I'm looking for? It's like Dumbledore asserting Harry as being powerful enough and ready to face what he has to face. Like, this is the end of me. I've been the one who's been guiding you, and now it's your turn.
Now he's handing on, passing on the mantle.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So they get to the tower, or just, I didn't want that to happen. They get to the Three Broomsticks. Find the place. And Dumbledore tells Harry he needs Snape. Okay. How did they start this little journey? Snape killed my parents. Here's Dumbledore saying, I need Snape. Why does he need Snape? 2 reasons at least. What's the first obvious one? Snape's a potions master. Dumbledore's been drinking all this potion. Antidote, What's the other logical reason?
Snape was going to kill him first so he doesn't die.
What's the potion? Is it orange juice? It's poison. Okay. Dumbledore is already dying from what? The curse is spreading, because we're going to find out from the memory. Snape tells him, you got maybe a year tops. Well, when did this happen? Before the beginning of the school year, before Dumbledore came and got Harry. He came and got Harry when? Before his 16th birthday. So sometime in July. Harry's birthday was yesterday, by the way. Sometime in July. What time of the year? What time of the year is it now? It's end of the term. It's almost the end. So, I mean, just going by that, it's been 9 months, maybe 8 months. So the curse is really spreading, and now he's just drunk a whole bunch of ready-made potion. So he wants Snape to do what? Save him?
Well, it's more like he wants him to keep his cover. Like, you need to kill me.
Keep his cover, go back to Spinner's End.
Don't die because we unbreak the
To protect Draco, what must Snape do? He must kill Dumbledore. Dumbledore cannot die a natural death, so to speak, by the potion. Right? He's got, I think he's saying, you got to get Snape quick because I'm about to die, and he's got to do it. Okay. Madame Rosmerta gives them up. They get to the tower. Okay. Big difference between the film and the book. In the tower, what does Dumbledore do to Harry? Puts him under a petrificus totalis. Okay, right? He's petrified. He can't move. What happens in the film?
Harry just stands there.
Well, he doesn't just stand there on his own. He's underneath the roof of the tower. So Dumbledore and Snape and Malfoy are up here once Malfoy comes up. Snape comes up. What does Snape do as he makes his way through the little room where Harry is? Literally. This is Snape. Okay. Harry, not an hour or 2 hours before, has been thinking, what about Snape?
Yeah.
And he's going to be quiet. He's going to take... No. That is not in Harry's nature. What's Harry going to do when Snape goes... I think he's probably going to, and then do something. Yeah. Okay. So, we have the big long interview scene with Draco where we see Draco is completely powerless and Dumbledore says, "You're in my mercy." And then Amicus comes up and then, not Greyfriar, that's the Bobby in Edinburgh. Greyback. Fenris. And we see Snape kill Dumbledore. After Dumbledore says, Severus, please. How does Harry take that?
Don't kill me.
Notice what he's doing. He's interpreting. Harry likes to do, not interpretive dance, but he likes to do, he likes to interpret what other people say. Okay? Green light hits Dumbledore square in the chest. This is the only time this happens in the novels. Somebody gets hit with an Avada Kedavra curse, and what happens to him? He flies up over the battlement. Okay, you've been to enough castles. Where you have the walkway, and then you have the big, tall battlement. You got to jump. You got to be on a springboard, okay, to get over that battlement. What happens to Cedric? 6 feet or 20 feet, doesn't matter. He plops down dead. Every time somebody gets hit with Avada Kedavra, they plop down dead. Maybe it's just Dumbledore and he's got to go out, with special effects, with style, yeah. Diving, I don't know. So, Harry goes after Snape. What does he try on him? Well, Cruciatus first. Snape cuts him off, parries it. Okay. No unforgivable curses from you, Potter. You haven't got the nerve or the ability. Harry tries another one. Snape deflects it. Notice what Harry says. Fight back. Fight back, you cowardly... Coward? Did you call me coward? Something coming out of my mouth. That's really weird. Furball or something. Coward, did you call me Potter? Your father would never attack me unless it was 4-on-1. True, from what we saw of the memory. What would you call him, I wonder? Stupid. Snape blocks it again. Notice what Snape isn't doing. He's not attacking. At all. He's not doing anything that could harm Harry. Why? Within the context of this novel, not knowing anything from the 7th. Harry's Voldemort's. The Dark Lord wants him. That's what we're led to believe. And then we read the 7th novel. And what do we come to find out? Snape's not going to do anything to harm Harry. Ever. Okay? But what should logic tell Harry? He just saw Snape kill Dumbledore. What should Snape think about killing Harry? You little pissant, And he doesn't. Harry never thinks about that. Who else doesn't think about that? Anybody?
The whole order.
The entire order?
Harry knows that Voldemort exists.
Voldemort said that in book 4. Potter's mind.
In book 5, too, at the end of book 5, when they're fighting in the.
That's only because Harry runs after Bellatrix.
No, but Lucius says, "Don't kill Potter." Or did not. I don't remember the exact quote. But it's like, "Don't kill Potter." Like
Save him for the
Potter
Dark
is
Lord.
good, or something
Okay.
like that.
You would
But-
still think that Snape would hurt him. Bellatrix had
He
no
doesn't even
power.
use Cruciatus.
Doesn't do anything to him. He just flicks off all his spells until the end.
Every one.
Look at what he also says to Harry. I mean, he's still teaching him as he's leaving the school because he's like, until you learn to control. Why, if he's on Voldemort's side, would he ever bother to say, "You'll never be able to fight the Dark"? Oh, by the way, you won't be able to fight my master.
Yeah, look what he says. Blocked again and again and again until you learn to keep your mouth shut and your mind closed. Potter. Occlumency lesson. As he's, parrying these puny little charms, said Snape, deflecting the curse once more. Now come, he shouted at the huge Death Eater. It's time to be gone before the ministry turns up. In pity, but before he could finish the stinks, excruciating pain hit Harry. He keeled over in the grass. Someone was screaming. He would surely die of this agony. Snape was going to torture him to death or madness. Snape, no! Have you forgotten our orders? Potter belongs to the Dark Lord. We are to leave him. Go, go. We're to leave him doesn't mean, but I can't get a little bit of, in here first. Harry felt the ground shudder under his face. As the brother and sister and the enormous Death Eater obeyed, running towards the gates, Harry trisectum sempra, flakes Snape's his wand. Snape flicks his wand. And Harry tries levicorpus. No, Potter. Where is it? You dare use my own spells against me, Potter. It was I who invented them. I, the half-blood prince. And you'd turn my inventions on me like your filthy father, would you? I don't think so. No. Snape shoots a hex at Harry's wand, so it goes away from Harry. Kill me then, pants Harry. Kill me like you killed him, you coward. Snape, don't call me coward. Killed me like you killed him. Whom? Voldemort? Dumbledore? Or is Harry also thinking of his parents? Because he thinks Snape is responsible, ultimately. Okay? Snape leaves. Battle ends. They go find Dumbledore's body. His eyes are closed. There's a little bit of blood trickling from the mouth. Harry feels for the cold chain of the horcrux. And we get this scene. They're in the castle. Harry's looking at the Slytherin table, and he sees Crabbe and Goyle muttering, and Malfoy's there, and we're told Harry did not believe that Malfoy would have killed Dumbledore. He despised Malfoy still for his infatuation with the dark arts, but now the tiniest drop of pity mingled with his dislike. What did Harry see Malfoy doing when he used Sectum Sempra on him? Crying. Crying. Why did he use Sectum Sempra? Because Malfoy caught him. Spying on him. Malfoy tried to curse him. Harry just blurted out the first thing that came to his mind. Notice, he didn't know what it did. Once he does he ever try and use it again other than this time on Snape? Where, Harry wondered, was Malfoy now, and what was Voldemort making him do under threat of killing him and his parents? That's right, because Malfoy isn't sitting between Crabbe and Goyle. Okay? So, Harry's thinking, at this point, what's going to become of Malfoy? Well, he's wondering, what's Voldemort doing to Malfoy? Or, to what was the phrase? To what turn What was Voldemort making him do under threat of killing him and his parents? What is Harry going to see fairly early on in Book 7? He's going to get a glimpse into Voldemort's mind. And what's he see? Again, Malfoy, or you'll feel my wrath yourself. What does Malfoy, Draco, become? A tool. He's merely a tool. And that kind of sickens Harry. Why? Because he now empathizes with Malfoy. It's almost like at that point Harry's thinking, I need to do something. I need to try to help Draco. Draco couldn't kill Voldemort. If Draco couldn't kill Dumbledore, there still must be some good in him, you know. So, we get the scene. I'm trying to go through this quickly. The burial. And then without warning, it swept over him the dreadful truth, more completely and undeniably that it had until now. Dumbledore was dead, gone. He clutched the cold locket in his hand so tightly that it hurt, but he could not prevent hot tears spilling from his eyes. He looked away from Ginny, the others, stared out over the lake toward the forest as the little man in black droned on. Movement among the trees. The centaurs come out. Grop comes out. And Harry remembered his first nightmarish trip into the forest, the first time he'd ever encountered the thing that was then Voldemort, and how he had faced him, how he and Dumbledore had discussed fighting a losing battle not long thereafter. It was important, Dumbledore said, to fight and fight again, keep fighting, for only then could evil be kept at bay, though never quite eradicated. Sun comes up, all kinds of people around. Harry looks at Ginny, and what does he think? Can never happen. Why? Because she's in danger. Well, who else is in danger? Everyone. Okay? Jenny's like, are you a damn fool or something? You've been watching Spider-Man and, I can't be with you. Stupid nonsense. Voldemort uses people his enemies are close to. He's already used you as bait once, and that was just because you're my best friend's sister. Ginny, what if I don't care? I care, says Harry. So guess what? If Harry cares, Ginny can still be used against him. Okay? Scrimgeour comes up to Harry again. And Harry says to Scrimgeour about Dumbledore, he will only be gone from the school when none here are loyal to him. My dear boy, even Dumbledore cannot return from the... I'm not saying he can. You wouldn't understand. And I've got nothing to tell you. What does Harry mean? You wouldn't understand. You don't have that kind of loyalty. What else? Is that true? Is Scrimgeour a dishonorable person? No, he is honorable. But his loyalty is where? To the ministry. To the ministry over everything else. Like who else? Percy. Okay? As Hermione says in the films, they've got what? Wrong priorities. Okay? And Scrimgeour starts to say, I see you are, and Harry finishes the statement. Dumbledore's man through and through. That's right. So Harry tells Ron and Hermione he's not coming back. I've got to track down horcruxes and such. They say, that's okay. We're going with you. Okay. We have half an hour. We're going to start book 7. I didn't think we'd ever actually finish that one. Hold on, I got to pull it up. What's book 7 called? Hallows.
While you're pulling that up,
Yeah.
any of you guys, it's one of the few times somebody actually says the name no comment is ever made in the series. Jenny actually says Voldemort's name in the very last chapter of book 6. Nobody ever, book 6. Nobody ever comments on it. It's kind of just done completely passive. But I've always wondered about that. Why? Well, it's just Jenny. 'Cause she's the only one who believes it. It's true.
Well, she's been possessed by him. She's like been there, done that, had the T-shirt, you know. Okay, beginning of the beginning. So it's titled, the first chapter, "The Dark Lord Ascending." Why? He's gaining power. What do they talk about here at Malfoy Manor? Getting close to the ministry. We see Snape and Yaxley come in. Okay. Yaxley says Potter's going to be leaving at this date. Snape says, no, my sources tell me this date. Okay. And then they talk about the ministry. And I mentioned this the other day. What word does Voldemort use to describe what pious thickness? Notice the name, by the way. Pious means devotion. Thickness implies what? Stupid. Okay. While he's doing what at the ministry? Converting. Okay. Using the Imperious curse. So notice, what kind of conversion is this? Forced. This is not a conversion of choice. This is not people choosing to become followers of the Dark Lord. These are people who are literally being brainwashed into it. Okay? So Rowling draws a distinction between real belief and false belief. Okay? So, what else do we see? How are the Malfoys being treated? It's their house. Like garbage. Okay? Who else do we see? It's the first time we see her. It's the only time we see her. Charity Burbage. Charity, what's it mean? Love. Love. Okay? What happens to her? Voldemort kills her first, and then the snake swallows her up. Okay? After she begs Snape to save her, and Snape just looks at her. Why doesn't he raise a wand? Is he going to take on the entire Death Eater Order? I mean, they need a title for themselves. You got the Order of the Phoenix, why not the Order of the Snake? Okay? Is he going to kill Voldemort himself and then, he can't do anything. So that when we get that memory later on, and Snape mentions about the people being killed that he could do nothing to save, he's talking about this. All right? Pick up with the next chapter. In Memoriam. Harry reads the obituary of Dumbledore, and we're told he had thought he knew Dumbledore quite well. But ever since reading this obituary, he had been forced to recognize that he had barely known him at all. Never once had he imagined Dumbledore's childhood or youth. It was as though he had sprung into being as Harry had known him, venerable, the silver-haired, and old. The idea of a teenage Dumbledore was simply odd. He had never thought to ask Dumbledore about his past. No doubt it would have felt strange, impertinent even, but after all, it had been common knowledge that Dumbledore had taken part in that legendary duel with Grindelwald. Harry learned about it his first time on the Hogwarts Express when he opened up his chocolate frog cards. And Harry had not thought to ask Dumbledore what that had been like. When was that, by the way? Long time ago.
Yeah.
You think there's an accident that Grindelwald is destroyed or is defeated in 1945, that World War II ends in 1945? The books begin with what we see brought out towards the end. This idea that what happens in the Wizarding world bleeds over and influences the Muggle world. So, Harry thinks about all this stuff. And he thinks about what Dumbledore said to him when he asked Dumbledore about what he sees when he looks in the mirror. Okay? Then we see this other article. Dumbledore, the truth at last. Coming next week. A shocking story of the flawed genius considered by many to be the greatest wizard of his generation. Notice the considered by many. Damning with, faint praise. Stripping away the popular image of serene, silver-bearded wisdom, Rita Skeeter reveals the disturbed childhood, the lawless youth, the lifelong feuds, and the guilty secrets that Dumbledore carried to his grave. Why was the man tipped to be Minister of Magic, content to remain a mere headmaster? What was the real purpose of the secret organization known as the Order of the Phoenix? How did Dumbledore really meet his end? Tune in next week to the, it's like old radio shows. Why are these two clips important? Because Harry then reads the big article, and what happens? He reaches the bottom of the article, and we get, but Harry continued to stare blankly at the page. Revulsion and fury rose in him like vomit. He balled up the newspaper and threw it with all his force at the wall, where it joined the rest of the rubbish. But while he tries to clean, his mind is just kind of playing all this stuff over and over. Harry sat down hard on the bed. The broken bit of mirror danced away from him. He picked it up, turned it over, and what's he see? A flash of brightest blue. He freezes, his cut finger slipping on the jagged edge of the mirror again. He had imagined it. He must have done. He had imagined it. Imagined it because he had been thinking of his dead headmaster. If anything was certain, it was that the bright blue eyes of Albus Dumbledore would never pierce him again. Next chapter, Dursleys departed. So, Harry talks with the Dursleys about what is going to happen. He explains about all these strange occurrences. He says they're not accidents. It's Voldemort. He's killing people. They're disappearing. Okay? Because Vernon has decided, no, we're going to stick around. Harry finally says, don't you understand? They will torture and kill you like they did my parents. Dudley. Dad, I'm going with these order people. Dudley, for the first time in your life, you're talking sense. He knew that the battle was won. Dudley wants it. That's what they get. Okay? So, the order arrives, and Hestia Jones says, maybe we should give them a little time. Family, say goodbyes. Harry, there's no need.
Yeah.
Well, this is goodbye then, boy, says Vernon. Swings his arm upward to shake Harry's hand, but at the last minute drops it. Can't even shake his hand. Petunia, ready, Diddy? Dudley doesn't answer. They start to leave. Dudley stays put. Why isn't he coming with us, Dudley says. What? Why isn't he coming too? Well, he doesn't want to. You don't want to, do you? Harry, no. Well, there you are. Come on. What now? Dudley's. Where's he going? Well, surely you know where your nephew is going, says Hestia. Off with your lot. He's going with you. Why does that anger Hestia Jones? What does off with your lot mean? Off with you weirdos. Okay? But she says, off with some of our lot. Harry, it doesn't matter really. Just let it go. It doesn't matter. Don't these people realize what you've been through, what danger you're in, the unique position you hold in the hearts of the anti-Voldemort movement? No, they don't really. They think I'm a waste of space. Actually, but I'm used to... I don't think you're a waste of space. Louder so that YouTube... What is... Harry, they think I'm a waste of space. Dudley, I don't think you're a waste of space. If Harry had not seen Dudley's lips move, he might not have believed it. As it was, he stared at Dudley for several seconds before accepting it was Dudley. Thanks, Dudley. You saved my life. Okay. Harry says they think I'm a waste of space. Dudley says, I don't think you're a waste of space. You saved my life. Harry, not really. It was your soul. And he looks at Dudley and he thinks, maybe the cup of cold tea on which he'd drawn that morning might not have been a booby trap at all. In other words, what does he think it was? Maybe it wasn't cold tea that was put out in front of his door. Maybe it was a cup of hot tea and... Okay, but what was it? A peace offering. Aunt Petunia, so sweet, Dudders. Such a lovely boy. Saying thank you. Hestia, he hasn't said thank you at all. He only said he didn't think Harry was a waste of space. Now here's your aha moment. Yeah, but coming from Dudley, that's like, I love you. Okay. Notice what Harry has just done. Notice it's omitted from the damn film. Harry takes, I don't think you were a waste of space. And he interprets that. Just like he interprets Voldemort transferred some of his powers to you. Voldemort put a piece of himself in me. Harry takes this and he thinks it means I love you. Harry is saying, when Dudley says this, I take it as Dudley saying, I love you. Did Dudley say, I love you? No. So why does Harry do this? Okay. What is Harry showing here? Understanding? What else? Louder, Vicky.
That he considers the relationship that way?
Yes.
We were never told that Dudley actually knows how to say I love you. I mean, his parents didn't really say I love you either. They just gave him whatever he wanted. So, to Dudley, that is saying I love you.
This to me is so key. Harry interprets an action and a statement by Dudley to mean Dudley saying to Harry, I love you. Does Dudley correct him? Said Harry, torn between annoyance and a desire to laugh, as Aunt Petunia continued to clutch at Dudley. Okay? Dudley trips forward, wrung Harry's hand with, sorry, that's Dudley's Diggle. Dudley gently released himself from his mother's clutches, walked toward Harry, who had to repress an urge to threaten him with magic. Dudley puts out his large pink hand. Blimey, Dudley. Did the Dementors blow a different personality into you? In other words, was your soul, I don't know, let's use language from the first book. Transformed? Metamorphosed? What does a Philosopher's Stone do? It takes something that's rotten, dirty, and foul and purifies it, elevates it. Dudley, I don't know. See you, Harry. Yeah, maybe. What's Harry say next? I get choked. I've been teaching this thing for 15 years. It chokes me up every time. Take care, Big D. Why does he call him Big D? It's what his friends call him. He's accepting the name Dudley kind of has taken for himself. But it's more the, what's Harry doing here? Okay, he's telling him I love you back. But what else? He's saying, Dudley, I'm one of your gang. That's what he means. That's what all of Dudley's friends call him. And Harry is now saying, I'm one of them. Take care, Big D. He doesn't say, take care, ittle dittykins, ickle popkins.
But you don't think Harry should give him crap?
Here? No. No.
Like even in a more friendly way, like when you grow up and there's siblings, you get nicer.
No. Because of, one, the teacup. Harry's interpreted that to say, okay, it wasn't a booby trap. Or Harry's come to the realization. Sorry, he doesn't interpret. He realizes it wasn't a booby trap. It was an offering. 2, he takes, I don't think you're a waste of space to mean, I love you. And then, notice, that's just words. Words are easy to say, right? What does Dudley do? Pries himself away from his mother. He comes up to Harry and shakes his hand. Who didn't shake Harry's hand? Vernon did. He got close, but he can't. What does Aunt Petunia do at the end? She turns like she's going to say something, but doesn't. Dudley says something and does something. Why is that important? 1, he's a different generation Dursley. I think Rowling is telling us here, things are going to be different. Notice what is said. Dudley says, see you, Harry. Notice it's not bye. Later. See you, Harry. Yeah, maybe. Take care. And Rowling has said in interviews, and I don't know, maybe it comes up in the Cursed Child. If it does, don't tell me, whatever. Don't say anything in case. Have any of you not read it yet? Okay, a bunch of you haven't, so don't say anything. So maybe it comes up in the Cursed Child that they do. Because Rowling has said, Harry and Dudley get together periodically. In other words, that relationship, which starts out in book 1, how? And all through book 6, it's crap, becomes what? What have we just seen? It's repaired. It's made whole. This is what I call Dudley's redemption. It's Dudley redeemed. Why? Because we're going to see a pairing of that at the end of the book. When Harry has his final battle with Voldemort, Harry does the same thing with Tom Riddle. Or, let me rephrase that, offers the same thing. I've seen the real you. You're a wreck. Be a man. Try for some remorse. What's he offering them? Be made whole. Is he saying you're not going to suffer for the crimes you've committed? No, he's not. He is saying, I've seen what you really are like. Where has he seen that? King's Cross. The little squirmy, bloody, flayed-like thing under the chair that's just whining and moaning. And every time Harry hears it, it's like he takes a step towards it. And Dumbledore says there's nothing you can do about it. And then just before he comes back, what are Dumbledore's final words to Harry? Don't pity the dead, Harry. Why? Does it do him any good? Pity and those who live without love. See, I think what Dumbledore is saying there is, Harry, here in Chapter King's Cross, in this limbo place, you can't do anything for that thing. But you go back and you show pity to those who live without love, the quintessential example of which is whom? Lord Voldemort. Maybe you can. So Harry goes back, and what does he do? He offers him his redemption. Why? I think because Harry sees here Dudley can change, anybody can change. And this is why I think the only reason the epilogue is important to me. Okay? I think she was stupid for writing the epilogue, except for one thing in it. Right? What do we see Draco do?
Nod at Harry.
Yeah. It's a kind of a doffing of the hat. What is that? What's that nod mean? It's a mark of respect. He's acknowledging. Would Draco Malfoy in any of the other books or any other time even give Harry the respect of the time of day? No, he wouldn't. Okay. Are Draco and Harry drinking buddies? Obviously not. Okay. So, we see the Dursleys go off. Dudley noticed, nearly smiles, lumbers from the room. Shut up. Turn. And Aunt Petunia, whose face had been buried in her handkerchief, looked around at the sound. Why is her face buried in her handkerchief? Is she blowing her nose? Is she crying? She turned around. She did not seem to have expected to find herself alone with Harry. Hastily stowing her wet handkerchief into her pocket, she said, "Well, goodbye." Harry, goodbye. She stopped, looked back for a moment. Harry thought she wanted to say something. She gave an odd, tremulous look. What does tremulous mean? Shaking, quivering. But she bustles out. Why the tears? She's not leaving Vernon. She's not leaving Dudley. She doesn't know Hestia Jones or Dedalus Diggle. It's not like there's any love lost there. Why the tears? She's so overcome because Nickel Deakins has shown respect to somebody. Is that it?
Yes.
Or is it because she's seen the last of her sister? After all, what are we told repeatedly? Harry has Lily's eyes. Might there, huge speculation, you take Dumbledore's language about murkier and murkier, might there be some regret on Petunia's part at this point? Especially after she sees this interaction between Harry and Dudley. Because what does this show?
That no matter what they try to teach their son,
Still a better person than they
He's still a better person than they are. What else? It's family. What might Harry and Dudley have been? Brothers or best friends? You think Dumbledore maybe had that in his mind when he dropped Harry off there? They're about the same age. Yeah, it's possible. Okay? But it doesn't work out that way. Yeah.
right?
Tell me about it. The Seven Potters. Come on, Dane. The Seven Potters. Harry doesn't like the idea of doing the Polyjuice Potion. Why not? Ooh, I like how you put that. It endangers everyone who takes on his image. Everyone who looks like Harry becomes a flying target. Okay? Isn't that kind of interesting because of what we see happen at the end? Everyone is endangered because of Harry. That's why Harry has to go into the Forbidden Forest. They drop his hair into the Polyjuice Potion, and what does it become? Why? Because he's a Gryffindor? Because Harry's a good person. Is that it? Is it because Hermione says Harry tastes better, and Ron's sitting there going, why else? What did Dumbledore say about Harry? And we didn't talk about this, so we're going to have to talk about it because I completely skipped it. Man, how in the world did I completely skip that? Sheesh. He is pure. He did say at the end of book 5, Harry, you're pure. Never once has he been tempted by the dark arts. Okay? We'll stop there. What we got to come back to in book 6 is when Harry finally understands, okay, about the prophecy. Okay, we'll stop there. Yeah, getting through this book in a single 3-hour class is damn near impossible because I've tried to do it several times now.